Being the wife of a president really suits you. Owning such a magnificent high-rise condo and all, thanks to that, I'll be super rich when I marry Ben. I'm so happy. That's right. I was thinking about our future. Sold your high-rise condo for $1 million. Once I get the insurance money, I'll remarry Jenny. Then, you can rest assured and go to heaven without worrying about me. How dare you? That high-rise condo is the precious inheritance my father left for me. I was planning to give it to Kelly when she got married. I couldn't stand the two people in front of me. Kelly then entered, looked towards me with a worried expression, and reassured me. Mom, don't look so worried. I've taken care of it. So, you don't have to worry about the high-rise condo. I didn't understand the details, but I decided to trust Kelly's words for now. I am Susan Morgan, a 45-year-old working housewife. After graduating from university, I joined my father's garment manufacturing company. Since my father's death 5 years ago, I have taken over as president. I married about 20 years ago and have a daughter named Kelly in her second year of high school. Kelly's real father passed away 3 years ago. On top of losing my beloved husband, the presidency is still new to me. Every day, I feel the need for something to lean on. The bar near our company has been a solace to my heart. I had never been in the habit of going out for drinks until my husband's death. But I happened to stop by this bar one day. The barkeeper was a very nice person. He must be about my age, tall and slim with a calm expression. His name is Ben. On days when Kelly stays out late with friends, I started visiting Ben's bar after work. There, I was healed by sharing my grief over losing my husband and my job stress at the counter. Professionally, Ben, a good listener, was definitely appealing to me. But I never thought it would lead to anything romantic. However, about a year after I started frequenting the bar, Kelly fell off her bike and was injured, and returned home in someone's wagon. It was Ben who was driving. He happened to pass by and saw Kelly fall with her bike, and he brought her home. I thanked Ben and invited him into our home. That day, the three of us had a lively conversation, and Kelly seemed to have taken a liking to Ben. After that, Ben and I started meeting privately, and he proposed 6 months later. After consulting with Kelly, who happily agreed, I remarried Ben. I thought happy days were waiting ahead. But even after remarrying, Ben continued to run the bar as usual. As a result, he was home during the day and took care of all the household chores. I felt a bit guilty. But Ben was good at cooking and even more meticulous at cleaning and laundry than me. Seeing such a Ben, I decided to let him take care of the household. Kelly also loves Ben's cooking. At first, I only entrusted him with grocery shopping as he prepared meals every day. But one day, Ben looked at the utility bills and said, "Isn't the electricity and gas costing too much? We need to estimate properly and choose a cheaper plan." While saying this, he opened his laptop and meticulously estimated the utility costs. I thought it might be better to leave all the household finances to him. So I gave most of my salary to Ben. However, that decision might have been a mistake. When my payday came, Ben would look at his bank account and grin. I thought it was a strange reaction, but at that time, I had completely entrusted the household finances to him. So I couldn't imagine what he was thinking. However, while Ben initially did all the housework perfectly, after 1 month, 2 months, and then 6 months, he gradually started neglecting the chores. Just as I thought the cooking was getting sloppy, the kitchen was lined with instant noodles and other ready-made meals. That wasn't the case until recently. I began to worry that something might have happened to Ben. Maybe he didn't like that I had left all the housework to him. I thought I should help out and consulted Kelly. Then Kelly said, "When I come home from school, I help with the chores. But recently, Dad has been leaving for work earlier, so we don't see each other as much. So I didn't notice that he was skimping on the housework." Hearing that, I felt strange. Kelly's high school is very close to our house. If she doesn't make any detours, she usually gets home by 4 p.m. Ben used to be at home when Kelly returned from school. But recently, he's been leaving the house so early. Concerned, I asked Ben the next morning. "Hey, Ben, it seems you've been leaving for work earlier lately. It seems like you're not getting around to cleaning and laundry as much." Surprised by my sudden question, Ben widened his eyes. "Huh? What are you talking about? The restaurant industry has been losing customers for the past few years because of the epidemic. But recently it's been picking up because it's subsiding. You really don't understand what's going on in the world, do you?" I was internally annoyed by Ben's contemptuous reply. Of course, I understand that, but there's no need to talk to me that way. Ben had never treated me like this before. Why had his personality changed so much? Without retorting, I just made an unhappy face, and Ben added, "Well, that's why I can't do the housework perfectly like before." But it's not like you, Susan, who can't do housework at all. I'm still doing a bit, so don't complain, okay? Huh? It's not that I can't do housework. If you were busy, you should have said so from the start. Then, we could have thought about sharing the chores properly. I couldn't help but respond sharply, feeling like I was being treated as if I were incapable of anything. Hearing that, Ben sighed as if annoyed. "Ah. All right, I got it. Am I being completely looked down upon? If that's the case, I have my own plans." The next day, I woke up early to do the laundry and started preparing breakfast. Ben, waking up later, was surprised to see the breakfast laid out on the table. "Oh. This is a rare sight. Is it going to rain today or what?" His expression was one of surprise. But his tone was unchanged from yesterday, somewhat condescending. "Well, I can manage this much. I wake up earlier than you, so from now on, leave the laundry and breakfast to me," I retorted proudly, standing in the kitchen, and Ben looked at the breakfast I had made and snorted. "Well, it's about what I expected." Despite my best efforts, being looked down upon like that was irritating. I didn't expect praise, but at least I wished he could genuinely appreciate it. Moreover, it was unpleasant to be treated arrogantly by Ben, who had recently stopped doing housework. However, seeing Kelly enjoy her meal cheered me up, and I headed to work. Since that day, my domestic duties gradually increased, taking care of cleaning and cooking dinner after returning from work. Wait a minute. It occurred to me that most of our living expenses were being transferred to Ben's account. As I did the grocery shopping, my own money was dwindling. Lately, I had hardly seen Ben shopping at all. Maybe it was time to ask him to reduce the living expenses. Thinking this, I discussed it with Ben. "Ben, since I've been doing the grocery shopping lately, could you at least cut the living expenses I transfer to you by half? Utilities and some food expenses should be enough, right?" I intended to ask gently, but Ben seemed flustered. "What? Half? That's out of the question. I haven't been going shopping because I'm busy. But I've been buying groceries online instead. Manage those well. Then you won't need to buy so much yourself." Indeed, the kitchen and storeroom were piled high with non-perishable food supplies. However, they were mostly ready-made meals and canned goods. Relying solely on such ingredients could lead to an unbalanced diet. I sighed deeply and replied, "You should stop wasting money on just these kinds of ingredients. Kelly is still growing, and she needs a balanced diet.
Ah.
My apologies. But I'm against reducing the living expenses. Just because we spend money differently doesn't mean you can complain and reduce the expenses. That's just tyranny. Ben snapped back defiantly, and I was at a loss for words. It seemed talking to him was like talking to a brick wall. Reluctantly, it seemed I had to leave the living expenses as they were, at least for a while. Despite this, perhaps upset by my complaints. Since then Ben started to leave the house from morning till night. The amount of housework I needed to handle increased. Kelly helped, but next year she would be a student preparing for university entrance exams. And I wanted her to focus as much as possible on her studies. From early morning to late at night, I had to work non-stop, juggling my job and household chores. Gradually, just standing became a struggle as I started feeling dizzy. My body ached all over. Before I knew it, everything went dark. When I awoke, I found myself in a hospital bed. Kelly was by the bed, tears streaming down her face. When she noticed I was awake, she hurriedly wiped her tears. Oh. Mom, you're awake. Kelly, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Her expression darkened in an instant. She bit her lip and fell silent, a foreboding feeling crossing my mind. Kelly, tell me everything. I won't be shocked, just tell me the truth. Mom, how could this happen? Through her tears, Kelly told me everything that happened while I was unconscious. She had found me collapsed when she returned from school. And had called an ambulance immediately. She had contacted Ben, who was at work, and he came right away. Apparently, I had been asleep for 2 days. During that time, I had undergone extensive testing. The result, terminal cancer. If left untreated, I was given 2 months to live. However, the chance of success for the surgery was only about 5%. Upon hearing this from the doctors, Ben suddenly left the hospital. Perhaps he couldn't bear the sudden news. Kelly had been by my side alone ever since. So that's what happened. I'm sorry for making you go through such a hard time. No, the one who's suffering the most is you, Mom. But you'll undergo the surgery, right? Kelly asked with a serious look. But I hesitated. Next year was Kelly's university entrance exam. Should I really undergo a surgery with such a slim chance of success at such a time? Let me think about it a bit. What's important is your future, Kelly. No. I don't mind giving up university if it means saving you, Mom. Kelly held my hand and said this. However, I couldn't respond immediately. If possible, I wanted to continue watching Kelly grow. A tear rolled down my cheek. A few days later, Ben appeared in my hospital room, inexplicably looking pleased. With an unfamiliar young woman behind him. Hey, Susan. You're conscious, huh? What are you doing here? You haven't shown your face at the hospital at all. And why do you look so happy? Who is that woman? Ben exuded a cheery atmosphere even as I was torn over whether to undergo surgery. The woman with him also wore a faint smile. Seeing the two of them like this made me feel uncomfortable. But Ben was indifferent to my feelings. Well, don't get too excited, it might shorten your life even more. Though, it's only about 2 more months left, right? What kind of thing is that to say? How can you be so calm when your wife is suffering? I couldn't understand how he could remain so cheerful despite my frustration. Ben maintained his smile and began to say something I could hardly believe. I was shocked too, but what's done is done. So, I've seriously thought about my future to ensure I won't be troubled after Susan is gone. As he said this, he put his arm around the woman sitting next to him. What? What are you talking about? It's obvious, isn't it? I'm talking about remarriage. Oh, let me introduce her. This is my lover, she's a regular at my bar. We've been seeing each other secretly, but if your condition is terminal, I plan to marry her. I was shocked to learn that Ben had been unfaithful. That explained why he had been absent from home so much. His relationship with this woman, who started as a regular at his bar, might have begun around the time he started leaving for work early. The woman spoke up with a cheerful voice. Nice to meet you, I'm Jenny. Being the wife of a president suits you. Owning such a magnificent high-rise condo and all, thanks to that, I'll be super rich when I marry Ben. I'm so happy. What? What do you mean? That high-rise condo was a precious inheritance left by my father. Intended for Kelly when she got married. I had informed Ben about this when we remarried, but what was he planning to do with it? That's right. I was thinking about our future. Sold your high-rise condo for $1 million. Once I get the insurance money, I'll remarry Jenny. Then, you can rest assured and go to heaven without worrying about me. How dare you? I could no longer forgive the two people in front of me. Just then, Kelly entered the room, followed by her boyfriend, Tom. Father, your voice is so loud it can be heard in the hallway. No wonder Mom has been admitted, and you've hardly been home. Kelly seemed unfazed even after hearing about Ben's affair. And the unauthorized sale of my high-rise condo. Meanwhile, Tom smirked at Jenny. Jenny, seeing Tom, looked tense. Tom. What are you doing here? Hey, sis, it's been a while. Still hunting down older men to pay your bills, huh? It turned out that Jenny was Tom's sister. Exposed by her brother and his mention of her dubious hobby, Jenny's face turned pale. Idiot. What are you talking about? There's no way that's true. Since I left home, I've been working honestly. I'm with Ben because I truly love him. As Jenny defended herself, Ben, who had been slightly doubtful, brightened up. Really? Can I believe that, Jenny? Of course. Tom always gets the favored treatment from our parents because he's the good child. So he looks down on me and speaks ill of me. Isn't that terrible? That's true. What a bad brother to look down on his own sister. Kelly, you should know better than to date such a man. Ben seemed reassured and began to speak his mind freely. Nonetheless, Kelly and Tom just smirked and looked down at Ben condescendingly. Kelly then turned to me, her expression anxious. Mom, you don't have to worry. We've taken care of everything. You don't have to worry about the high-rise condo. Exactly. We've sorted it out. Actually, we came today to tell you about it. Though they didn't elaborate. Their confident demeanors as they left the hospital room suggested good news. Wait, what does that mean? Yes, explain what you mean. Ben and Jenny attempted to detain them, demanding explanations. Despite my confusion, I decided to trust the assurance in Kelly and Tom's exit. Shortly after, a message from Kelly popped up on my phone. She couldn't speak freely earlier because of Ben. But she detailed how they addressed the high-rise condo sale. Understanding the situation, I felt a sense of relief and decided to face the surgery with courage. Motivated by Kelly's encouragement. The surgery took place at the largest general hospital in the region. On the day, monitored by Kelly and Tom, I underwent the procedure. By the evening, the surgery had successfully concluded. Depending solely on how I recovered post-operation. Significantly, I hadn't informed Ben about the surgery. I didn't want someone who only anticipated my demise present on such a critical day. It's been a week since then, and I've received no word from Ben. He's probably planning his life with Jenny, assuming I wouldn't survive. I wonder what they would think knowing I did. My recovery has been progressing well, with promising signs of improvement. Today, being Sunday, Kelly and Tom planned to visit the hospital. And there was one more person coming to see me. After the morning rounds, Kelly entered the room, followed by Tom and his father, Robert Johnson, who runs a real estate company. Coincidentally, the real estate company Ben tried to sell the high-rise condo through was managed by Tom's father, whom Ben didn't realize was related to his stepdaughter's boyfriend. Jenny seems to have had no involvement in the selling process, so she probably didn't realize it was happening. Mr. Johnson, I truly apologize for the inconvenience caused by the sale of the condo. Although it was Ben who did it, the property was in my name, so I deeply apologized. No, not at all. You were about to undergo surgery. What a misfortune you almost faced. The high-rise condo sale had initially been completed. However, there were discrepancies in the paperwork. Some documents had been changed to Ben's name, invalidating the contract. A property sale must be conducted by the owner. Ben likely only altered the documents necessary for the sale to his name, without thoroughly reviewing everything. Kelly was the first to notice the discrepancies. She saw the documents left on the desk while Ben was processing the sale, including paperwork from the real estate company, which she recognized as belonging to Tom's family's business. Knowing the property was the eagerly anticipated high-rise condo fueled her anger. Thus, she first photographed these documents with her phone and informed Tom. Tom then reported it to Mr. Johnson. After reviewing the documents again, Mr. Johnson promptly informed the buyer about the situation and had the contract cancelled. This was all communicated to me via messages from Kelly, while I was feeling anxious about whether to proceed with surgery, knowing that I could lose a significant inheritance from my parents. Learning that the sale had been stopped allowed me to focus on the surgery. Ben's act of falsifying documents to sell the high-rise condo without my consent constituted a crime of forgery. Mr. Johnson had been trying to contact Ben, but for some reason, all calls went unanswered. However, they couldn't just leave it be, so a missing person report was filed. So, has Ben been found? As I asked, everyone around chuckled. What exactly had happened to Ben? Mr. Johnson, still smiling, answered. Your husband was found just a short while ago, in quite a pitiful state. What? What kind of state? I was stunned. Mr. Johnson explained, detailing Ben's sorry episode. Since his last hospital visit, Ben had been staying at Jenny's apartment. Jenny had been splurging on luxury goods, planning to use the money from the high-rise condo sale and the insurance money after my passing. However, Jenny was shocked when she heard a voicemail from the real estate company stating, the sale of the high-rise condo has been cancelled. Moreover, another voicemail from the hospital followed, saying, the surgery was successful and the prognosis is good. Realizing neither source of money would come through, Jenny berated Ben, demanding he fix the situation. However, Ben, just as shocked, was at a loss. It seems he only retained the part about my having only 2 months to live from when I was admitted for the surgery, not hearing anything about the surgery itself. Despite Jenny's fury, Ben nonchalantly responded, there's nothing we can do if the money's not coming. He then carelessly went to sleep. Upset, Jenny packed her belongings and all of Ben's possessions she could find into her car in the middle of the night and fled. Ben was left to sleep, without even his underwear on. When he awoke, he found the apartment stripped of everything but the furniture, with no clothes to change into. Near the pillow where he had slept, there was a note Jenny had left. Since you're the reason we're not getting any money, I'm taking all the valuables and belongings. Shocked by the note, Ben realized he was left without clothes, a wallet, or a phone, making it impossible for him to go outside. Jenny, realizing that the voicemail about the real estate was from her father, returned home. She asked her father, Mr. Johnson, to somehow deal with the condo sale. But of course, he would not listen. Instead, Mr. Johnson scolded Jenny for her relationship with a married man. He then quickly found out the apartment's location where Jenny and Ben were staying and went there. That's where he found Ben in a miserable condition. It's needless to imagine what that looked like. Relieved that everything was resolved, Kelly then called out to the door. "Hey, you can come in now." Prompted by her, Ben and Jenny entered the room. Ben immediately apologized deeply. "Susan, I'm really sorry. I was out of my mind. I was deceived by this woman. Jenny here is a terrible woman who scams older men for their money." "What? Ben, you married for money too, right? As soon as you found out she didn't have long to live, you started making a fuss about the inheritance and insurance money." As they argued, it seemed they had forgotten they were in a hospital. A passing nurse scolded them, "Please be quiet." Subdued by the nurse's admonition, Ben and Jenny finally quieted down. Mr. Johnson then said to Jenny, "Jenny, there's something you need to do first." Still sulking, Jenny replied, "You mean apologize to her, right? Just so you know, I'm a victim too. When I first went to Ben's bar, he said he was single. He was kind and handsome, and I fell for him. But as soon as we started dating, he tells me he has a wife." Mr. Johnson then glared at Ben. "Is that true? If so, it means you played with my daughter." "Wait a minute. It was Jenny who came on to me, and I had no guilty feelings. I was just being kind to a customer." "Oh, Father, you mean you get involved with someone just because they come on to you? You could have just said, 'I'm married.'" Caught by Kelly's sharp remark, Ben was at a loss for words. "I was filled with regret for remarrying such a man. Initially charmed by the kindness he showed at the bar, it was clear I had poor judgment in men." As I was sinking into self-loathing, Tom lightened the mood by saying, "Well, it's kind of a tit-for-tat situation. My sister has been picking up wealthy-looking older men everywhere she goes, reverse approaching them. We've got numerous voicemails at home like, 'Jenny dear, it's the barkeeper from the bar' or something. Whatever. 'I miss seeing you recently.'" Kelly and I burst out laughing at this. Mr. Johnson sighed and muttered, "Disgraceful." Just then, Ben stood up abruptly and yelled at Jenny, "Jenny, we're done. Before we split, give back everything you took from me. And that's not all. You'll pay for leaving me in that state in the room." Jenny nearly fell back with her chair from the force of his outburst. But she glared back at Ben, defiantly replying, "As I said before, it's your fault the money didn't come through. So keeping your belongings is my compensation. Both of you, be quiet." Perhaps fed up with their persistent arguing, Mr. Johnson suddenly shouted, causing a stir around them. "First, Jenny, apologize to Mrs. Morgan. Not just that. You'll also pay damages and sincerely apologize. And you, sir. You got involved with my daughter. Therefore, you will pay damages to both my daughter and your wife and properly atone for your actions." Eek. Ben trembled at Mr. Johnson's forcefulness, like a stern father laying down the law. Seeing Ben so flustered, I delivered the final blow. "Oh, and by the way, changing the owner's name on the documents without my permission. When you try to sell the high-rise condo is a serious crime. I've already reported this to the police. By the way, the evidence is the images Kelly took with her smartphone. I showed him the images of the documents that Kelly had sent. Ben's face turned pale as he saw them. How? How can this be a crime? I just thought it would be better to change the ownership before you died. Why is that criminal? Despite his experience in customer service, Ben seemed clueless about the wider world. That's called forgery of private documents. Ugh. Resigned, Ben slumped, his expression darkening. Damn it. There's nothing I can do now. If I'm going to be arrested, it's better to turn myself in. Before you do that, sign this. And expect a claim for damages for the affair too. I handed him the divorce papers that Kelly had picked up from the city office. Ben accepted them with a bitter look. Mr. Johnson mentioned he would discuss the affair damages Jenny would pay later. It seems she was heading back home for now. Still looking disgruntled and unable to organize her thoughts. In the end, Jenny left without apologizing, led away by Mr. Johnson. As soon as I was discharged from the hospital, I filed the divorce papers. Soon after, Ben was sentenced to a year or less in prison for forgery of private documents. Since he had been a salaried bar manager, he wasn't rehired after his release. Having lost both his job and his living situation, Ben showed up at my place. Susan. I really messed up. I'll do anything you say, can we start over? As he knelt and pleaded, I smirked and replied. Oh, really? You'll do anything? Well, I won't remarry you. But I guess I can offer you a job at my company, cheap as that may be. Really? Oh, thank you. As long as I have a job, I can figure out the rest. Relieved and genuinely happy, Ben didn't know what job I had in mind for him. In a way, a role that suits Ben, who used to listen to customers' troubles as a bartender. In fact, during the divorce, I had demanded $30,000 from Ben for the affair. And the mental distress I suffered during my illness, and he still hadn't paid. So, this was an opportunity to get him to work it off properly. In my company, which is predominantly staffed by female employees, interpersonal conflicts are constant. There's a senior employee, nearly 70, who cries daily because a younger woman in her 20s treats her with disdain. However, the real troublemaker is often the older employee herself, who explodes in anger at any instruction given by the younger staff. We've had full-time counselors before, but even professionals haven't lasted long due to the intensity of the conflicts. Therefore, I tasked Ben with mediating these tangled relationships, particularly as a confidant for the older female employees. At first, Ben accepted the role casually, thinking it was an easy task. However, within just 3 days, he was overwhelmed. Women significantly older than him, feeling special attachment, followed him around persistently, even outside counseling sessions. On worse occasions, they would even show up at his room. And when Ben listened to the younger women's problems, the older women would become jealous and hurl insults, leading to even more disputes. Now, Ben frequently comes to me with his own complaints about the job, but I usually dismiss them lightly. In desperation, he even tried reaching out to his ex-girlfriend, Jenny, for advice. However, Jenny's situation is complicated. After the debacle, Mr. Johnson sent me $20,000 in damages, which I insisted Jenny must repay over the years. Consequently, Jenny is under strict surveillance by her father, Mr. Johnson, who monitors her every move and manages her finances, leaving her with no money to spend freely. During one phone call, I could even hear him shouting in the background, asking who she was talking to. Ironically, Ben, wanting someone to listen to his troubles, ended up having to listen to Jenny's problems instead. Despite his frequent complaints about wanting to quit, Ben has nowhere else to go and reluctantly continues the job. For the time being, I've kept him as a day laborer until he finishes paying off the damages to me. 2 years have since passed, and Kelly and Tom have become university students. Tom, still living under the same roof as Jenny but not wanting to stay with his sister, has started living alone. He tries his best to cook for himself, though he often comes to our house for dinner, which Kelly prepares. Kelly, inspired by my illness, decided to pursue a career as a dietitian and has enrolled in a dietetics program at university. Despite initially disliking cooking, Kelly now uses what she learned from Ben's cooking as a reference, and is determined to surpass him in culinary skills. As Kelly cooks, Tom, eating her homemade meals, playfully says, "Then I'll become richer than your mom." Then Kelly, "You'll have to marry me, the guy who's better at cooking, right?" Blushing at Tom's sort of proposal, Kelly can barely respond. I dream of the happy family life they could build together. Reflecting on my daughter's happiness fills me with joy. Here's hoping these warm days continue forever.